My deadbeat son cheated on his wife while she was pregnant. Now he is seeing how happy she is with her new husband and he is realizing what he lost. I have a son, Bob. Along with him, I have a daughter. My husband died when my daughter was only 5 years old. The death of their father came as a shock to Bob. I tried my best to comfort him. I took him to a therapist and trauma experts. They all said he was a good boy and very well behaved. The only father figure Bob had was his uncle, my brother. He was a nice man as well. A man with discipline. Ever since my kids were little, I tried my best to be a good parent. I stopped dating for a long time so that I could focus on my kids. I gave them important life lessons. I even told them about their dad. My late husband was a man of dignity and morals. He is the type of person who wouldn't sacrifice his morals to please people around him. I always tried to be both parents, but I guess I wasn't enough. My son started dating my Dill Ruth when he was 20. They met at a restaurant where Ruth was a part-time worker. I liked Ruth. She was well-mannered and had a good heart. I told my son he picked the right woman for him. Bob was head over heels for her. They got married 2 years after dating. Ruth finished her degree early and got a job as a teacher at the age of 22. I noticed that my son didn't like it. He would complain about Ruth's odd hours, which I think was irrational because she was a kindergarten teacher. I explained this to my son that Ruth has her own life, a life outside his own. I told him if he had concerns about her time he should take it up to her. He said he understood. Things were calm for a year. A year later they started having another fight. Ruth said that she wanted to pursue her master's. She is still young and wants to do something meaningful with her degree. Honestly, I was in support. Ruth was a prodigy, but my son objected. He thought that it was a bad idea and that it would cause trouble. Now, I don't like to mix in their lives. I tried to stay away from their conflict, that is, until one day Ruth came to me and said Bob threatened to leave her if she ever tried to pursue a master's degree. I did give my son an earful, and honestly, I took it as an offense because I worked jobs to support my family. I worked hard and now I have my own business. It is just so disappointing to me that my son had such backward thinking. A few weeks later, Ruth came to me and said she was pregnant. She forgot all about her master's. I tried to be there for her as much as possible. Later Ruth discovered my son was cheating on her with a mutual friend of theirs. Ruth was devastated. I called a family meeting. There Ruth was crying and asked Bob how could he do this to her. Bob said things like Ruth doesn't love him. She doesn't make him feel special. Her friend always fulfills his needs and understands him better. He realized he was wasting his 20s by playing family with a woman who always fights him. I asked what were the fights, and what did Ruth do to make him so angry? He said her whole existence just bothers me. She cares more about her higher education than me. If she was a good wife she would be a housewife rather than going out. I reminded him that I also had higher education. He said that's different. They argued a lot. My son just called her a whore and a beach the whole time. Moreover, he is an absent father to his own daughter. He pays child support but barely makes time for his daughter. He went low contact when I stood my ground and told him I would not support his infidelity at any cost. I met his mistress because he insisted I gave her a chance and told me that after meeting her I would change my mind about Ruth. But he was wrong. His mistress was not a nice person. My gut was telling me she was not good-hearted either. She made an odd comment that she was saving my son from a potentially bad marriage and I should be happy for him. I told him I would not be at his wedding if I married the woman who wrecked his home. I know my son is more to blame, but she knew Ruth and Bob. She knew they were married. Recently, Ruth got married to John, my friend's son. Ruth asked me to walk her down the aisle. It reached my son's ears and he called me all sorts of vile names. He forbade me to go to her wedding and called me a hypocrite because I didn't come to his wedding but I was going to Ruth's. I just told him to calm down and talk to me when he is not acting like a baby. I just feel like a failure. Like I failed my late husband too. My late husband would be disappointed in my son as well. I don't know where I went wrong. I tried my best to provide. Maybe not having a father made him like this. I sometimes now regret having him as my son, but I still love him. But I don't love the man he turned out to be. I guess being a single mom was a curse after all. Update. My son emailed me and said he wants to talk to me. I thought I should have a long conversation with him, but I made some ground rules. He is not allowed to criticize or call anyone any names like the last time and will be civil when I am talking. He agreed. He came to my house yesterday at noon. My husband was off to work and my daughter was in her room. He sat down and there were moments of awkward silence. He asked me how I was and we had small talk. I asked him about his wife and that's when he started to cry. Not ugly crying, just a few tears. I can tell he is not doing well. I sat beside him and told him he could tell me. He tells me everything. He tells me that he is sorry for how he reacted. He understands why I might be ashamed of him. He later tells me his marriage is not going well, that his wife is no way near as good as Ruth was. Ruth took care of all of his needs and loved him. Yet he treated Ruth like trash. He is constantly fighting with his new wife. He knew he effed up a lot. He learned that the last time he visited his daughter she kept referring to John as her dad. Bob tried to make her say the word dad and she screamed at him by saying you are not my dad. He saw how happy Ruth was with another man, and he realized what he has lost. I asked him, would you have missed Ruth if your wife did those same things for you as Ruth did? He was silent. I further told him it seemed to me that he only kept Ruth in his life because he used her to fulfill his needs. I explained to him about my relationship with his father. We were with each other not because I fulfilled his needs. We were with each other because we loved each other. And that love didn't stop when one person was at the most vulnerable and weak. But he, my son, left Ruth when she was vulnerable and needed him the most. His needs were fulfilled when Ruth was just a housewife working a small job, but as soon as she had no need he discarded her. It really hit him hard as he was sobbing. He said that he knew he was a crappy person, but he was manipulated by that bitch. He said that about his wife. To be honest, I lost my cool and yelled that he should stop blaming other people for his mistake. He decided to cheat. He decided to leave Ruth, and he decided to abandon his daughter. He cannot run away from his responsibilities and wonders why nobody is taking his side. Moreover, he hasn't learned anything from his mistakes because he is still calling his wife vile names. This is the same girl she claimed is better than Ruth. He had a choice not to cheat. He could have pushed her away when she tried to seduce him, but he didn't because in his mind he made this fantasy that Ruth doesn't care about him because all she ever wanted was to complete her education. I raised him better than this. He is not just insulting my upbringing, he is also insulting his own father, and he will only see suffering in his life unless he takes full accountability for his actions. He told me he knew I was disappointed in him and he wanted to make things right. He is trapped in a bad marriage because God is punishing him for how he treats his daughter and ex-wife. I told him if he wanted to be a good man he should start by apologizing to Ruth and become cordial with his daughter. I also gave him a reality check that his daughter already sees John as her dad, so I have doubt she would start calling him dad anytime soon, but he should at least try. I told him to apologize to his sister as well. If he is really miserable in his marriage he should get a divorce or try counseling. Whatever decision he makes, I will support him, but that does not mean I will forgive his wife because she has also done Ruth wrong. Unless she makes an apology to Ruth, I don't think I can see her as a decent person. Lastly, I told him that even though I was very disappointed in him, I still loved him. I will always guide him to what is right. He will always be my son, but this is his chance to be a better man. I believe in second chances. This time I hope he cleans up his act. I am proud of him that he acknowledges his wrongdoings. Final update: Ruth and John are doing fine. She announced that they were expecting a child together and Ruth asked me to be the godmother. I am really overwhelmed and happy for them. However, I still don't know whether I should be her kid's godmother or not. Now on to my son. He has decided to separate from his wife. I guess his marriage has problems and he is trying to sort it out on his own. He is in therapy. I support him in his journey. Things between my granddaughter and him are still a bit sour, but I am helping as a middleman. He talked to Ruth about the change in custody, but she said no because given how he has treated her in the past couple of years, she doesn't trust him. I know Bob is sad, but I assured him he shouldn't give up now. He should still fulfill his duty as a dad. He meets my granddaughter at my house. Right now they are playing snakes and ladders in my living room. My son has been really trying to be a better version of himself, and I support that. I hope in future things will improve for him.